Are you making a big Microsoft Access security mistake without even realizing it? Welcome to another Tech Help Quick Queries video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. Quick Queries is where I take all the cool questions people post on my website, YouTube comments, Reddit, email, carrier pigeon, subspace radio, messages in bottles, whatever, and I roll them all into one video. Most of these don't need full hour-long deep dives, but they're still great questions, so I put them all together in a weekly video, and I call it Quick Queries, which may or may not have anything to do with actual access queries. I think today does have one, though. Today we're going to talk about a Microsoft Access security mistake that a lot of developers still make. We'll talk about what Access can do and what it can't do. We've also got other questions about opening PDFs from forms, running Access over network IP addresses, AI writing questionable VBA code, storing pictures and PDFs the right way, old Office installs breaking new runtimes, using Task Scheduler for automation, and whether Access is actually still useful in the real world. Spoiler, it is. All right, let's jump in. Leading off today, we've got Jerome. He liked my picture control video and asks if Access can open a linked PDF from a button on a form, where the file path is built from things like the date, supplier, and an ID. Yes, absolutely. In this case, I probably wouldn't use a picture control because it's a PDF, not an image. What I would do, though, is build the full path in VBA using string concatenation based on the fields in your form, and then use the follow hyperlink command to open it. So maybe the folder comes from the year and the month, the file name comes from the exception ID, and then Access hands it off to whatever PDF viewer Windows is using, and that's a nice clean way to tie your database records to outside documents. This video should get you started. I'll put a link down below. Next up, Kay says they've disabled the Shift key, hidden the ribbon, locked down the startup options, but newer versions of Access are still letting users maximize the window and see the tables in the navigation pane. Yeah, this is one of those ongoing battles with Access. You can hide the navigation pane, disable the special keys, lock down the startup options, make it harder for casual users to get around your interface, create an ACCDE file. There's lots of things you can do. And I've got multiple videos that teach a lot of these techniques, including my simple security video and my full security seminar. But at the end of the day, honestly, if the data lives inside the Access file itself, and somebody is determined to get to it and they know what they're doing, they can. That's why for real security, especially in a business environment, I always recommend moving the data to SQL Server and using Access as your front end. Access security is more about keeping honest users honest than stopping a determined hacker. This video will cover a lot of the options that you can do to lock down your database. And my security seminar will teach you to make Access as bulletproof as possible. But if you're concerned about data security, you really want to be using SQL Server for your backend. Okay? Okay. Regarding last week's quick queries, Shadow Dragon says AI-generated code can really be hit or miss. Sometimes it's brilliant. Sometimes it completely forgets what it was doing 5 minutes ago. Yeah, I've seen that before. You should always double check everything and keep backups. Yes, absolutely. That's been my experience too. I love using AI for stuff I already know how to do because it can speed things up tremendously, especially for me. I'm like a one-man band. I do everything. So I can sometimes say, okay, here are my notes for a video I'm going to do today. Help me, flesh this out, come up with things that I might not have thought about, that kind of stuff. I basically already know what I want to cover, but sometimes, my brain doesn't always remember every little detail. That's where the AI is good for me, or for things like, spell checking and grammar, that kind of stuff. Or sometimes for code, I use it for code for things that I already know how to do, but it's good to just say, oh, hey, write this for me real quick. Like if I need a record set loop or some repetitive VBA boilerplate, great. I'll let the robot do the typing, right? But if it's something complicated or something I'm unfamiliar with, I test the heck out of it before I trust it. AI is like having a really enthusiastic junior developer who occasionally hallucinates. Maybe he's out back smoking weed, and he confidently breaks your database. So use it as a tool, not as gospel. And yes, backups, always backups. Steven says he's going to go check for form zooming. I still don't have it yet on my main machine. I've only got it in my beta machine, which is the one I used for making the video. So I'm still waiting. Access team, come on. Roll that out. People are waiting for it. Yeah, there's a few more people that are waiting on it. I got a few people on my website said they're still waiting for it. So it's coming. They roll it out to a slow group, a small group first. And then they make sure there's no major problems. And then they open up they increase it from 10% to maybe 30%. And then, so just give it time. Everyone will get it eventually. All right, next up, we got TJ Kaysen. Serious question. Got to put my serious IT face on for this one. All right, so let's see. No, I can't do that. I can't be serious. He says they put their AC access database in a shared folder, but when the other computers try to open it using a network path with an IP address, it won't open, and they can't add it as a trusted location. Well, if that IP address is a private address on your local area network, which should be a wired network, by the way, Access doesn't like wireless, then technically you might be able to get it working, but it's really not the preferred setup for Access or Office trusted locations. You should use a mapped drive or a proper shared folder name instead of a raw IP address. There are some tricks and workarounds you can do to force it, but honestly, I don't recommend going down that road unless you really know networking and you really know what you're doing. So try to use a map drive or a UNC path, like //server /folder name, right? And if this is a public IP address, don't try to open up Access directly over the actual internet. Don't do that unless you enjoy database corruption and sadness. Again, Access works over a wired local networking with each user running their own local front-end copy and on the same network. So if you want some options for other ways you can run your Access database, here's a video on setting up Windows file sharing so you can set up a shared folder for your database. Here's a video on setting up a trusted location to run that database out of. Here is how you split your database into front and back end so that every user gets their own front end copy and your back end goes in your shared folder. And if you are trying to run your database over the internet, watch this video. There's some options, some things not to do. Don't use OneDrive or Google Drive or any of those. There's some options here. SQL Server is a great option. So watch this for more information. Next up, we got Shale Manisser. Says Access is useful more as a conceptual stepping stone, kind of like learning assembly language, but not necessarily something that's still very useful in the real world. I will respectfully disagree with that one. Yes, Access is fantastic for learning database fundamentals because the barrier to entry is low, and you can build very useful stuff very quickly. Someone just beamed in. But calling it just a first database ignores the fact that there are companies still running Access systems that I built 30 years ago. I'm still in touch with a couple of my clients back in Buffalo that I built databases for. They're still using them. I mean, they've been upgraded a few times since then, but yeah. Now, for small and mid-sized businesses especially, Access is still incredibly useful in the wild. Now, would I build the back end for Amazon in Access? No. Not unless I wanted Jeff Bezos showing up at my house with a flamethrower. But for inventory systems, scheduling, CRM, reporting, quoting systems, line of business apps, Access is still an absolute workhorse when used properly. So it does make a good first database, but that's not to say that it's, only a first database and that there's something better. Unless you're talking about upgrading your backend to SQL Server, but then you're still using Access. So, okay. Next up, Jerome again. He says he'd like to learn more about the Windows Task Scheduler. Also wants beginner VBA examples for commonly used commands and techniques. Yeah, the Windows Task Scheduler is definitely on my list. It's super useful for automating Access databases. You can use it to launch a database or any application, really, at certain times, run backups, process imports, send emails, all kinds of stuff. Personally, my quote-unquote server Access database, it runs 24/7 on a loop because it's constantly doing background tasks, like I said, sending email, checking my website, those kind of things. For beginner VBA, I do have my intro to VBA video. And this one's about 20 minutes long. It gets you started. And I mentioned this at the beginning of most of my other videos. And, you know, I've got a bunch of other videos on VBA topics as they come up, you know, things I haven't covered elsewhere. But honestly, if you want to learn VBA, that's what my developer course is for. It starts from the absolute beginner level and builds you up one piece at a time. There's what I'm up to like 59 now. So there's tons of stuff if you want to learn. The tech help videos are more quick answers to specific topics. But if you really want to learn VBA properly, you just got to put the time in and work through it level by level. It's all there. Next up, Wilson says they solved their Access install problem by uninstalling older Office versions first. They had both Access 2010 and 2016 installed. Removed the older one and suddenly everything worked. I used to see this all the time with Microsoft Office installs, especially when you're mixing old license versions like 2010, 2013, 2016. This video initially was talking about 32-bit versus 64-bit components, but you can see the same problem happen sometimes with different actual versions too. Office does not like that situation at all. My general recommendation is if you're installing a newer standalone Office version, uninstall the old one completely first. Don't trust their upgrade procedure. You know, if you've got Access 2016 and you're installing 2024, uninstall 2016 first, especially if you're hopping versions. You know, if you're still firing around on 2010 or 2007, remove it completely, then install the new version. Now, Microsoft 365 is a little bit different because it's designed to update incrementally over time, but those older box license versions can very quickly turn into a tangled mess. So be careful with that stuff. Next up, Zawillia says they love the tutorials, but wishes the full courses were cheaper. Yeah, I totally understand that. And honestly, I wish I could charge less too. But this is my full-time job. This is what I do for a living. And the Microsoft Access community is a lot smaller than, you know, things like Excel or Word. So I have to price the courses based on what it actually takes to, you know, run my business and keep making content. Now, YouTube ad revenue helps, but trust me, it's nowhere near enough to live on. And the free tech help videos that I make, like this one, the quick queries videos, they're basically my way of giving away a ton of useful free material, and hopefully a small percentage of you will decide to sign up and become members or pay for my courses. You know, for the people that really want to master Access, that's what supports me being able to do this and to keep making videos. You know, I got puppies to feed. And so I have to price my lessons what I need to make to pay my bills too. So I don't call my plumber and have them come over for free to fix my toilet. So that's I give away a lot of free stuff. I do my best to keep my courses priced as low as I can, but you know, still make enough to survive and keep doing this. And if I had to go out and get a real job, I wouldn't have any time to make these videos. So it's a balancing act. But I'm with you. I hear what you're saying. The one thing I like to say is that what I'm teaching you is a whole lot cheaper than a college education. Next up, we got Ravenbeak. He says that the image subfolder technique is working on a form, but now they want to use the same pictures in a report and wonder if it should work the same way. This video is about storing your images for your database, for the records, right, in a subfolder under your database folder, so that you don't have to hard code, you know, C:\database / whatever. You just use the current project.path, and then if you move your database folder, the images just move with it. But yes, in general, the same idea should work with reports too. If you're building the path with current project.path and then adding the subfolder and file name, the technique isn't form specific. Reports can use it as well. So if it works in the form but not in the report, you know, the usual suspects are a misspelled field name, a missing slash in the path, a missing quote somewhere, code running in the wrong event. Access is very particular. You know, one tiny little typo and it's just going to sit there looking like, I don't know. So without seeing your database or at least some screenshots, it's impossible for me to tell what you did wrong. But yes, to answer your question, the same technique should work fine with a report as well. So double check everything. Next up, Gregory says that compact is like Defrag. Yeah, that's not a bad analogy for non-technical users. Compact and Repair and Access does reclaim unused space. It reorganizes data pages. It rebuilds your indexes. And it generally cleans things up internally, kind of like how the old school disk defrag reorganized files on a hard drive to make things more efficient. You know, it puts the different pieces of the files all together in contiguous space. The big difference is that Compact doesn't just rearrange stuff. It actually creates a brand new database file behind the scenes and copies everything into it cleanly. And that's why I can sometimes fix corruption issues too. So Compact is, yeah, it's kind of like Defrag for your Access database. It's oversimplified, but it's close enough for government work, right? And it's close enough for quick queries. Next up, we got Hassan. And he asks about storing pictures and PDF files inside an Access database and what the best workaround for handling those files is. This was posted on my Access Beginner 1 class, so I'm assuming you're a beginner. So just real briefly, I've got a whole separate video that explains this in detail. In a nutshell, for the beginners, technically Access can store pictures and PDF files and other things like Word documents inside the database itself, using things like attachments or OLE objects, but honestly, I don't recommend it for most situations because it bloats the database file very quickly. And Access just isn't optimized to be a giant file storage system. A big database is a slow database, and you got a 2 gigabyte limit, which if you're storing images and other crap inside your database, you're going to reach that pretty quickly. So the better workaround, and what I explained in this video here, is to usually keep the files in a folder somewhere. Like, I recommend a subfolder under your database folder, or just, you know, some storage location on your network or wherever you got it. And then you store the file path or the file name in your table. Then you can display the image in your database, or you can open the PDF when you need it with the follow hyperlink that I mentioned earlier. And that's a cleaner, faster, and a whole lot easier to maintain long term. So I hope that answers your question. So today we learned that Microsoft Access security starts with understanding that hiding tables is not the same thing as protecting your data. And if you need really serious security, SQL Server is usually the better backend solution. We also learned how to open PDFs from forms, troubleshoot weird environment problems on client machines, store pictures and documents properly, and why AI-generated VBA code still needs some human babysitting. Post a comment down below, let me know how you liked today's video, and send me your questions for next week's Quick Queries video. But that's going to do it for your Tech Help Quick Queries video for today, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you learned something. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time, and enjoy your weekend. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button right now and give me a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel, which is completely free, and make sure you click that bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. If you're new to Microsoft Access, check out my Access Beginner Level 1 course. It's over 4 hours long, and it covers all the basics like tables, queries, forms, and reports. It's a great place to start, and it's also completely free. Members of my channel get extended cut videos, sample databases, access to my code vault, and full training classes every month. Click the join button for details. Thanks for watching. I'm Richard Rost with AccessLearningZone.com. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time.